I eat I would consider myself carnivore adjacent in the sense that I am a huge fan of, I think red meat's a health food, which I know, I mean, that saying that in and of itself is a controversial statement today. I take a very protein forward approach with my diet. Like, I think that protein, there are many benefits to prioritizing protein. It's the most satiating macronutrient. You've got a 6-fold higher thermic effect of eating protein as compared to carbs and fat. Obviously your body is made of protein. It supports muscle protein synthesis. It halts muscle protein. There's so many benefits to prioritizing protein, which I do. But I do think that, like dark leafy greens, for example, is known to be one of the most nutrient dense forms of produce because of its low calorie density. And it's a great source of vitamin C, folate. But also I think dark leafy greens, take kale. Kale is the top source of these carotenoids called lutein and zeaxanthin, which we know directly support eye health and brain health. And so I don't see a reason to deprive myself of these greens that I know have these compounds that literally migrate up to the brain where they help to reduce oxidative stress. They might even improve the way, cognitive function and the like.
I think the arguments against eating those, to me, always are like some of the silliest, is that plants are producing these chemicals to avoid predation.
Yeah.
And that these phytochemicals are bad for you. Like, Jesus Christ, in a world today where there's so much that's bad for you, to concentrate on salad
Yeah.
seems fucking crazy. I don't think anybody's dying from salad. I don't think you should live off salad. And everybody that I know that tries to eat only vegetables winds up feeling like shit. And there's only a few exceptions to that. And again, there's no one-size-fits-all diet. But the people that I know that have gone into a vegan diet, almost all of them get bad blood work.
Oh, yeah.
And they try to figure out what's wrong, and then many of them try to supplement, and then one day they'll have a piece of salmon and feel like their body just returned on, and then they go, oh, okay, I got to stop doing this.
I hear that all the time. Yeah, veganism is a psyop to me. It's
an ideology. It's an
Yeah.
ideology just like any other cult. And once you become a part of that, you lose all objectivity, and you're no longer willing to talk about these things in a rational way. You're defending your religion.
Yeah. I think one thing that's really interesting is that, even within the nutritional orthodoxy, saturated fat still continues to be demonized, right? Mm-hmm. But only 3% of the saturated fat that your average American ingests comes from steak, comes from meat. The vast majority of saturated, like if you were just to accept that saturated fat is the worst dietary nutrient one might ingest.
By the way, that's a psyop.
Yeah.
Literally from the sugar company.
Because saturated fat, a fat isn't a fat. Like, are we talking about saturated fat in dairy? Because that seems to have no negative cardiovascular impact, right? But 3% comes from red meat, excluding mixed dishes. The vast majority of saturated fat that your average American ingests comes from desserts, comes from mixed dishes like pizza, lasagna, egg rolls, things like that.
Good stuff.
Dairy. Yeah.
You're making me hungry.
But it's like we've demonized steak, right? Which is like
Right.
one of the most nutrient-dense things a person can eat, right?
Yeah, we're in a very strange position, this country at least, is with regards to our understanding of what is actually good and not good for you. When I tell people that I eat mostly meat, they're like, what about your cholesterol? I'm like, it's like to try to walk them down the rabbit hole of good cholesterol, bad cholesterol, the balance of cholesterol as it relates to plaque in in your arteries. Like, what's really wrong? And is it actual food that most people eat? Is that really what the problem is? Because I doubt that it is. I doubt that it's meat. I doubt that it's eggs. I doubt that that's the problem. And when people are willing to readily consume this processed bullshit on a daily basis, but then demonize steak, I'm like, that is one of the dumbest things that we have become accustomed to. This idea that a steak is delicious, but it's ultimately bad for you.
Yeah. No, it's
We should consume less meat. Bill Gates saying it with a big pot belly.
yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ.
No, it's crazy. I mean, especially contextually today with you look at health statistics, right? Like 1 in 2 people are almost obese today. 40% of people are obese today. And by the year 2030, half are going to be not just overweight, but clinically obese, okay? Half of adults today have some degree of insulin resistance, right? We know that 90% of adults have some degree of metabolic dysregulation if you factor in things like waist circumference, low HDL triglycerides, and things like that. And so for a health expert today to demonize any whole food to me is just absurd and actually really unethical. And red meat is again and again it comes up on these lists in the data as one of the most nutrient dense foods. I mean, it provides the most bioavailable source of iron, heme iron, right? I mean, iron deficiency anemia is still a major global health problem last I checked, and red meat is the ultimate iron supplement. It's highly bioavailable. It provides zinc, it provides creatine, it provides carnosine, carnitine, all these really incredible and valuable micronutrients. And again, when talking about steak, that's where 3% of the saturated fat is. So what's wrong with steak? What's the big problem with it from a health standpoint? I don't think there is any, to be honest.
And yet there's people that will tell you need to eat less.
Yeah.
Which is just like so strange.
Well, our beef consumption actually over the past few decades has declined. Our chicken consumption has gone up, but we are eating less red meat. And look at our health is trending worse and worse and worse. Where today your average American is largely on a plant-based diet. It's a plant-based diet it's not a whole foods plant-based diet. I'll concede that. It's a largely ultra-processed plant-based.
Bread and ketchup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it really is a huge problem. And, foods like eggs, I mean, there was this thing where for a while, it was like all animal source foods are bad, right? The antidote to disease is to shun all animal source foods, right? But then we started to see, oh, wait a minute, fish is actually associated with better health outcomes. So let's eat more fish. And then the data came out showing us that, oh, wait a minute, cholesterol, this nutrient that we've demonized for decades, actually has no downside with regard to cardiovascular risk. For the vast majority of people consuming dietary cholesterol, very little impact on serum cholesterol, right? And then dairy. Turns out that, oh my God, wait a minute, it's not low-fat and reduced-fat dairy that seems to be associated with better health. It's full-fat dairy that seems to be associated with better health. What the hell? Right?
Yeah.
And so I think, I do think it's just a matter of time before we realize that there is a lot of good to be gained from foods like red meat. But, there's so much politicization.
Yeah. And then people, cite things like the China study, which is very flawed.